hosted by Joe Abbate.
And I'm Joe Abbate. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to share the show and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got lots of videos and lots of do-it-yourself things there on our YouTube channel. Susie's with me tonight. Susie, you there?
I'm right here.
All right. We got some things we're giving away. We'll talk about that a little bit later, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get right on with the show and get right into it. Let's get into the Moto Showcase. The Moto Showcase is brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Be sure to visit them online at PrestonPettyProducts.com. And don't forget, all Preston Petty molds, fenders, all Preston Petty products are now made right here in the USA. In the Moto Showcase tonight, we look at a 1979 Honda CR250. This was sent in to us by Bob Nelson. Hi, Joe. This 79 CR250 is a bike that wasn't intended to be a restoration project, but just happened to snowball into a fun journey. I bought a used tank as a spare for a 78 CR250 I had, and I sent that tank to you to be repaired. Thank you for doing such a great job. I bought that tank from Facebook Marketplace, and I asked at the seller if he had any other parts. He said that he had a frame, but that the swing arm was seized on it, and it was in rough shape. It took me 2 months to finally meet the guy. I bought the 1975 or 1979 frame from him. About the same time, a 1979 motor went up for sale, but it was in England. I asked the seller if he would ship it to Chris Elderfield, a Red Rocket expert who manufactures and sources just about everything you need to support your 1979 or 1980 Honda CR250. The gentleman drove 3 hours to deliver the motor to Chris. Chris completely rebuilt the motor, and he shipped it to me in about 3 weeks. The cylinder is Nicosil coated with a Wassner piston. The ignition is an HPI, and the clutch plates are Vintco. The rod was replaced by Chris, and the crank has been balanced. Left over from previous project, I had a stock swing arm, front hub, 36 millimeter Mikuni, airbox, and a stock pipe. I had to cut the original swing arm off the frame. It was stuck in the frame that badly. And I sent the frame and swing arm to my powder coater, and it was done in Tahitian red. More about that, more than it is a Tahitian red than it is a bit of a different shade of red. I bought the rear hub off of eBay and had both hubs powder coated. Then I laced them up to XL rims with Buchanan stainless steel spokes. I found a 1988 CR250 front end, and I got a picture of it right here. That's me explaining to you. I love what you did here with the brake stay on the front. What you had is a disc brake fork, but you made a drum brake fitted by making a really cool little brake stay. I like that very much. The triple clamps are really trick, and the front end went together perfectly. I went with Vintco air shocks on the rear. The rear brake hardware, the chain tensioner, rear axle, and swing arm spindle were all sourced from Chris Elderfield. Reproduction plastic is VMX. The seat is from Elderfield, as is the silencer, shift lever, and Kickstarter lever. Most of the fasteners are titanium. I don't know how to spell Brian's last name, but he did a great job on painting the tank. Please give him credit. You are, of course, speaking about Brian Fedigan, who paints all of my gas tanks. I drove out to Rochester to pick up the tank. He was a nice guy and a craftsman to boot. I recently procured a double leading shoe front wheel. I plan to install that and refurbish it. That's where it stands today. I appreciate you and all the people and companies you have listed. Well, Bob Nelson, thank you for sending in us that beautiful 1979. I like the seat cover. Once again, I love what you did here with the billet aluminum on the front brake stay, and just overall a great looking bike. And yeah, as far as a parts supplier goes, Chris Elderfield, absolutely the best in the business. Look at that shift lever. Look at the pegs. Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Bob Nelson, for sending all that into us. Again, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or share the show on Facebook. If you want to become a sponsor of the show too, you can for just $249 a month. Or if you want to be a show supporter, $50. Get you a shirt, a hat, get your name up on the board for 90 days. All righty? In the next Time Tried this segment, we're going to see a video from Roy Vanderveer. Roy's been sending us some videos, well, for quite some time now. They're very, very informative, and he makes a really great piece. So let's see what Roy has in store for us tonight. Roy.
Hello, I'm Roy Vanderveer, and I thought this would be a good time for a quick pro tip about a couple of topics that I don't see people talking about. One of the frustrations with taking engines apart and then even on the reassembly side is when you get these fasteners that have lock tabs. These are common on primary nuts, clutch hub nuts, and countershaft sprockets. And what I will often see is these lock tabs folded up on all 6 sides. And all that does is makes it take so much time to take this stuff apart. So that's step one. You only need to bend the tab over on one side. The nut's been torqued to spec. This lock tab just ensures that the nut's not going to go anywhere. And here's the really big tip. Do not bend that tab flush against the nut. You want to have just a tiny air gap in between that bent tab and the nut. If the nut tries to turn, the lock tab is not going to let it go anywhere. But this gives us a perch. So when we disassemble this primary gear, it's real easy to get behind it with a chisel and bend that lock tab back flat. This makes your life a lot easier and vastly extends the useful life of that lock tab, which in some cases, they're not even available anymore. So you want to be careful not to make more work for yourself tracking down impossible to source parts. And while we've got this bottom end in front of me, let's talk about, this is just a cosmetic issue. It's real common that we get engines in and previous owners have rebuilt it, and there ends up being Yama bond running down the cases. If you apply the stuff carefully, you'll only get a little bit of overlap like this, but it's real easy once it sets up to just rub it off. And then instead of this engine looking like some hack put it together, you've got a nice clean seam where the cases join together, and the Yama bond is in there where it needs to be. It doesn't need to be out here looking ugly, collecting dirt and oil and making a mess. So with that tip, you can have a nice professional looking engine build with no slop all over the place. Now this one, some previous owner even used RTV sealant on the clutch cover gasket, which the stuff was everywhere. I didn't bother taking the time. You can imagine there's still a little bit left in the screw holes, which I'm not worried about because you don't see it. But clutch cover gaskets don't use sealer. If you need to put sealer on a clutch cover gasket, you've got a bigger problem that needs investigation. But that's just a simple little tip on how to have a professional looking engine rebuild.
Thank you, Roy Vanderveer. Great video, as you have been sending us every week for quite some time. The Here's the Problem segment is brought to you by McCaffer Vintage Bike Stands. You can get a hold of Gordon McCaffer on Facebook or at the number listed below. Let's get to the first question. It comes in from Brian Webley. Joe, good morning. I have a question about bringing rubber parts back to life. Like the air boot between the airbox and the back of the carburetor, is there any way to make this more flexible? They get hard as rock and shrink also. Thank you. Yeah, there is a way. And there was something we had on the show a few weeks ago that Tyler McGregor sent in regarding some fork boots that he had that he wanted to bring back to life. And what Tyler shared with us is that he used boiled linseed oil. Now, what he did was, and what I'll do, Brian Webley, is I'll get you more information, or Tyler McGregor, if you're watching, and I know you are, you can maybe share that with Brian Webley as well. But it's about preparation too, about boiling the parts in water for a while and then putting them in the linseed oil, and it takes an extensive period of time to dry, like a couple of days. You have to leave them out. and they will become soft and pliable again. I was reading more about this online today, and what they say is that it does work. It will make it soft and pliable, but it is not a solution in the long run. It'll last a couple of months, and you may have to do it again. But to get a bike together, if you want to race it before something breaks or cracks, and you want to have some good soft pliable rubber there, you want to use linseed oil, and that is available at your home specialty stores. We will be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A after this message from McCaffrey Bike Stands.
Hi, I'm Marty Tripes. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
We are back. You are watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't forget to share the show on Facebook and now on YouTube. Be sure to become a subscriber. Great commercial, McCaffrey Workstands. There it is once again. Gordon is a certified welder. There's his number right there on the screen. So get a hold of Gordon if you want one of those stands. Almost everybody I know is using them, and I've had two of them for over 25 years now. My favorite part of the show, trivia. That's right. It is trivia that's brought to you by Mike McCook and Motorcyclist Illustrated. Be sure to visit the Motorcyclist Illustrated on Facebook. The prize, there's very, very few of these left. I counted them the other day. There's like under 10. Oh. Anyway, 18 by 24 poster. This was a cover of Jimmy Weinert and Tony DeStefano back in 2004 on Racer X. This is a trivia contest that is call-in only. Call in only. So get your little arthritic fingers ready to dial 925-784-2195, 925-784-2195. The question comes in from Roy. Hi, Joe. I have a very timely question this week, given that the two-stroke world championship was yesterday at Glen Helen. That was Sunday. And I put much effort into researching this to make sure every point is correct. It is my preference that the question and answer be read as it is written, and it shall be, Roy. The question is, who was the last rider to hole shot a 450 Supercross main on a two-stroke? Who is the last rider to hole shot a 450 Supercross main on a two-stroke? Call in now, 925-784-2195. Susie is standing by. We will move on with the What's It Worth segment, and we'll see if Susie gets a winner in the very, very near future. The What's It Worth segment is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Be sure to visit them online at fullcircleracing.com. Tonight, and this, of course, is the segment where I encourage you, the viewers at home, to guess how much this bike recently sold for, and we will get you a couple of Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers, compliments of Susie Creates and the lovely Sue Abbate. Okay? So here we go. It's a 1968 DT1 250 that this seller is selling. I have owned it for over 6 years now. I've kept it up. I've kept up the maintenance on this bike since the day I've owned it. All maintenance records will be included in the sale. It's in great running condition. It was restored by a Yamaha enthusiast in Northern California. This is a chance to own a rare piece of Yamaha history. Included in the sale are some collectible Yamaha DT1 250 memorabilia. I have a clean California title for this motorcycle as well. As we can see in the picture, it is a very, very original bike. And if you are a Yamaha DT enthusiast, you know that 1968 is the first year of the DT. 250. And, many people often use the word game changer. This bike truly was a game changer in 1968. It was called scrambling back then. It was kind of before motocross came to America, but a lot of guys turned these into motocross bikes and got into trail riding, and it just got a whole lot of people off the couch and onto the seat of a motorcycle. So how much do you think this bike recently sold for? $2,000, $5,000, $7,000. This bike sold on eBay with a feedback. It is a confirmed sale for $5,100. I think that is just a smoking deal for a bike that can be registered, ridden on the street, complete, even the original grips by the way it looks. It looks like the seller went through it just enough to make it a really nice, but maintain the integrity and the originality of the bike. All righty. I just got the word from Susie. So far, no takers on the question. I'll read it again. From Roy Vanderveer. Hi, Joe. I have a very timely question this week, given that the two-stroke world championships were on Sunday at Glen Helen. I put much effort into researching this to make sure every point is correct. It is my preference that the question be answered and read as it is written. The question is, who's the last rider to hold shot a 450 Supercross main on a two-stroke, which obviously is a 250? I'll give you a little hint. There was some overlapping of some of the greatest riders in Supercross at that time. And some were on their way in, some were on their way out, and they're all just legendary and certainly AMA Hall of Fame. Some of them are inducted already. They may all be, actually. All right? Anyway, it's a pretty big hint with the overlapping thing. You'll get it, okay? We did say that the price was $5,100. I am going to check the comment section. I see 4150, 32, 4200.
Philip Liberty was 53.85.
53.
Yeah. And Ron Harvey was 49.50.
And it was 51.
Yeah.
Ron Harvey was closest, I think, without going over. Is that who it was? Ron Harvey?
Ron Harvey.
Okay. Ron Harvey, you are tonight's winner. You will get a couple of stickers, compliments of Susie Creates and Vintage Motocross Q&A. But you have to send me your address.
You're getting a water bottle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Susie, put up that water bottle. Let me put you up on there again. You getting a water bottle for that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, all right. We're getting a water bottle. All right.
Ron Harvey.
Ron Harvey, make sure you get me your address. And while I'm thinking about it, last week we had a winner, Jeff Hinkle, I think it was. Jeff, you never got me your address. If you get me your address, I'd be more than happy. I think you want a water bottle too, or one of those mud scraper brushes, one or the other.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure people get their gifts when they win something here on the show. Okay. All right. And where are we now? Oh, we're at the Full Circle. Oh, we're at a Full Circle commercial. Well, let's get to the Full Circle commercial. We'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Brock Glover, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'll be right back.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
Thank you, Russell Waters and Amsoil, for all you do for us here at the show and have done for so many years now. Be sure to visit them online at, there it is right at the bottom, www.theoilpeopleshopamsoil.com. That's www.theoilpeopleshopamsoil.com. And you know what? How's 25% off sound to you? 25% off all Amsoil products you buy directly from Russell Waters. Thank you, Russell Waters. Did you know This is Jeff Kokoski's little corner of the world right here, and he sent me a little curveball this week, and I am absolutely loving it. Jeff usually comes in with something that has to do with the history of the sport. Sometimes it's boots, sometimes it's torque wrenches. He's done close to 100 segments for this show, and he did something this week that, well, let's get right to it. He and his buddy Ron were busy out in the garage, and they made this. Yeah, that's right. This particular segment tonight is better suited for the next time try this portion of the show. But since that's not generally my segment, did you know how to make a motorcycle engine stand out of an automotive engine stand? Although it's fairly easy to pull an engine out of a bike frame and set it on the bench to work on it, you soon learn that it can be a little frustrating when you actually do the actual work. The engine tends to want to rock around and start to disassemble itself almost. The remedy to that situation, most of us have constructed a simple engine stand out of leftover 2x4s. But these have their limitations too, because different engines don't always fit properly in a 2x4 cradle, and it makes it difficult to work on the bottom of the engine. But what if there was a way to mount the engine in a jig to raise it off the bench and to be stable enough to rotate the engine and get all the portions of the motor? Amazon and the motorcycle warehouse suppliers like Rocky Mountain ATV and Motorsport offer benchtop engine stands that allow you to attach the engine to a device via two of the motor mounts. This lets you rotate the engine 360 degrees to perform all sorts of different repairs without having to fight the engine rocking back and forth all over the workbench. Now, prices range from $120 to almost $200, so they're not cheap. But if you do a lot of engine rebuilding, they are worth the investment. Their one limitation is that they take up lots of space on the workbench, and it can move around a bit if the center of gravity starts to fall outside of the pivot line. Enter my buddy Ron. Ron and I have known each other ever since their early teenage years in high school, some 50 plus years ago. And like most of our buddies, we bonded over dirt bikes, a passion that continues to this day. Ron retired at the end of last year, and with the bitter cold we've had experiencing here in Pennsylvania, Ron knew he wasn't going to be doing any dirt bike riding for a while. So he needed a project. Actually, truth be told, his lovely wife, Tracy, just wanted him out of the house during the day. You can only watch so much of Judge Judy. Ron wondered if he could modify an automotive engine to work with a motorcycle engine stand to create a contraption that would allow him to work on the bike engine on benchtop level, but then wheel it off to the corner of his shop when he needed the workbench space for something else while he was waiting for parts. Well, he had an old car engine stand that rescued some time ago from a junkyard. And with a little bit of garage engineering and some TLC, he felt his car engine could be adapted to work with the benchtop motorcycle engine stand. He tore the car engine stand down, had it sandblasted to clean out the old paint and decades of grime and grease off of it, and bought a new heavy-duty casters and hardware for it. He wanted to be able to roll the whole apparatus over top his existing workbench for easy access to all of his tools. But the vertical arm of the car engine stand just wasn't quite tall enough. Okay, well, he cut the arm. He inserted a 10-inch piece of rectangular tubing inside the two halves of the arm, squared them up, then TIG welded it and back together to basically raise the center line of the car engine stand up another 6 inches. Ron used to sell Volvo heavy equipment. So he had a few cans of Volvo yellow left over in his shop. The yellow paint gave his engine stand a professional finish, plus it matched the RMs and YZs that we have a stable of for our vintage bikes. I'm really enjoying this. Anyway, after removing the adjustable arm that are attached to the car engine stand's mounting head, Ron then had to attach. Hang on a second, guys. Then Ron had to attach the engine stand to the mounting head. By drilling holes through one end of the plate, the motorcycle engine stand was able to join it at the mounting head with some stout bolts and washers to achieve a rigid connection. The finished stand works very well. He's able to roll it around and stand underneath his workbench so that the engine he is working on is within easy reach of his tools. The pan underneath the engine also catches springs, circlips, 10mm sockets, or any of those tiny parts that may fall off onto the workbench and seem to end up in Never Never Land. The engine can also be rotated pretty much in any, where is it? Oh, here it is right here. I'm sorry. The engine can be rotated pretty much in any direction compared to like on a bench. It also makes it easy to drain the oil, wash it down without making a mess of your workbench. I mean, the engine basically floats. All in all, Ron's engine stand works out really, really well. For $200 and some ingenuity and elbow grease, the stand is professional looking and above all, it's functional. In the future, he may add some stainless steel bins to the base so that all the parts of the engine that he's working on will currently remain together. Although he has created it's pretty self-explanatory what he's created. If anyone would like additional pictures, PM me, and I would be happy to supply them. And there was one other picture here too, where the engine rotates 90 degrees and it rotates for easy access underneath it as well. I didn't want to miss any of those pictures. Well, I'll tell you what. It may not fit in the Did You Know segment, but it does fit on this show. And that was just an absolutely great addition to tonight's show. Jeff Kokoski, Ron, thank you guys so much for all you do. I look forward to seeing you every year at the York Swap Meet. And this engine stand you created, it is just phenomenal. And thanks for adding the Vintage Motocross Q&A sticker. Where did I see it? Up there in the front. There it is. There it is, the Vintage Motocross Q&A sticker. Okay? There. All right. We are going to hear from the International Motocross Museum, and we will be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Heikki Mikkola. We will be right back.
That was perfect, Heikki.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. Be sure to visit them online at internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. And the big news, the International Motocross Museum is now on YouTube, and you cannot believe the hits that Terry Good and his videos are getting. I'm talking about 10, 12, 20,000 hits in a day. All right, so if you want to get an up-close and personal look at the bikes that you will be able to see in the future at the International Motocross Museum, if you want to see them today, you could see them on YouTube. Now, let's get back to that trivia question again, right? I'm going to read it again because nobody called so far. I have a timely question, being that this past Sunday was a two-stroke world championship at Glen Helen. I put a lot of effort into researching this to make sure every point is correct. The question is, who is the last rider to hold shot a 450 Supercross main on a two-stroke? I am going to give you a huge hint, okay? If you were at a Broadway play and the curtain goes up, what time is it? Big hint. Big hint. If you're at a Broadway play and the curtain goes up, what time is it? Let's move on with the rest of the show. We'll see if anybody gets it from there. We are up to This Week in Motocross History. And Susie, you have your viewer appreciation prize coming up soon, too,
I
don't we?
do.
Okay, so we will get to that in just a moment. This week's motocross history is brought to you by, of course, Racer X. Be sure to visit them online at racerx.com. It was 1949, and twin brothers Tom and Danny White were born. Together, they will have a huge influence on the American motorcycling industry as pioneers in the four-stroke movement, as well as aftermarket business with their company, White Brothers. Both were inducted into the AMA Hall of Fame. 1974, it's the opening round of the AMA 250 Pro Motocross Championship, and that took place with a triple header at the Hangtown Motocross Classic in Plymouth, California. Honda's Billy Grossi, if I put up the right picture, that would be good. Honda's Billy Grossi took the 250 class win above the CR250, aboard a CR250 Elsinore out of Husqvarna's Marty Tripes and defending two-time champion Gary Jones, who was on a Can-Am. In the 500cc class, it was Mike Hartwig where he debuted his new 400cc monoshock with a win ahead of CZ's Tony DeStefano and Husqvarna's Gary Semix. 1984. Now it's time for this picture. 1984, in the bigger upsets of the 80s, Team Tam privateer Honda rider Alan King won the opening round of the AMA 250 Pro Motocross Championship in Hangtown. A former Suzuki and Kawasaki rider from Michigan, King's win came against factory riders Rick Johnson, Keith Bauer, I think that's supposed to be Keith Bowen, Suzuki's Mark Barnett, Kawasaki's Kent Howerton, and Billy Lyles, and Honda's Ron Lachine. In the 125 class, it was Jeff Ward. He was a reigning defending national champion in 125. Johnny O'Mara of Team Honda, were having a war that day in a two-man supremacy. Ward ended up on top at Hangtown. Another Team Tam rider, A.J. Whiting, finished third. And I think we have a winner in the trivia contest. I'm going to read the question one more time out loud for everybody, and then we'll see who's online and who's going to answer the question. The question is, of course, who is the last rider to hold shot a 450 Supercross main on a two-stroke? Who do I have on the phone?
Tyler, Joe.
Tyler?
Yeah.
Tyler Smith?
Nah, McGregor.
Oh, Tyler McGregor. I'm only kidding. I had a feeling it was you, Tyler McGregor. Thanks for calling in. So tell us, who was the last rider to hold shot a 450 Supercross on a two-stroke?
Jeremy McGrath.
It is Jeremy McGrath. Did you get it because of the clue?
Yeah, and I was thinking back a bit, and I'm like, one of these days I got to get this trivia. So today was my day.
Today was your day, Tyler. I want to thank you for calling in and you getting it right. It was, of course, Jeremy McGrath. And the hint I gave was when the curtain goes up. What time is it? Showtime. So I figured that might help some people. Thank you for calling in, Tyler. Susie, you'll get your address. Tyler McGregor, big supporter of the show. And Roy, great question. Got everybody thinking. It certainly got me. It had me thinking if I didn't know the answer. I mean, I had to look back a little bit and really, really think about that. But he was in the mix that day with the Australian guy. How could I not forget? I mean, I must be
What
really
Australian guy? Hunter?
No.
Oh, what
No.
are you talking
He
about?
was in the mix that day. McGrath was in the mix with
Oh.
James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, and Chad Reed.
Chad Reed.
All right.
Oh.
Before I get an entire continent pissed off at me. All right. I don't need that. What else do we have coming up here? That was in the motocross history thing, and I think we wrapped up that. So let's just move on to the announcements. And in the announcements tonight, which are brought to you by the International Motocross Museum, it's a good time to tell you, buy a shirt. Get a Vintage Motocross Q&A shirt in yellow, black, gray, white, short sleeve or long. You can get it with the logo, or you can get it with that original Kurt Evan tune on there, okay? Just $24.95 up to XXX for a couple of bucks more. You can get it in any size you want, and basically you can get it in any color you want as well. Alrighty? George Ackerman's got an event coming up, and it's free. It's the second annual Moto Barn Mini Bike and Quad Show. They've got custom prizes, free food, drinks. That happens on Saturday, April 11th. That's just around the corner, guys. In fact, today's the 8th. Happens this weekend. That's at 16238 County Line Road, County Line Church Road, Ruther Glen, Virginia. And I got a little message here from George Ackerman that he wanted me to read out loud, and I think it's certainly worth it. Joe, I wanted to tell you how awesome Preston Petty Products, Mike and Paul, are to me. I get a message. George, what do you need for your upcoming event? What can we send you? Wow. So I reply with a small list of a few things, and this great company sends me so much more. Thank you, Paul, Stannard, and Mike. I sincerely hope what I'm doing helps your business. George then followed up with, he also wants to give a huge shout out to Ben's Vintage Mini Bike Lovers for the AMSOIL donation of AMSOIL products for the show. Well, you're very, very welcome, George. And yeah, Paul Stannard, Mike, and of course, Ben's Vintage Mini Bike, all great guys, all supporters of the show. And I've got my Preston Petty shirt on here tonight that Paul Stannard gave to me some years ago. And I appreciate it and I value it very, very much. What else we got coming up? Oh, a 3-day event that is happening in April. That's the CZ race that happens the 24th, 25th, and 26th. There's a bike show, there's racing, and there's a class for everybody in vintage and post-vintage. Scott Burnworth, the event continues. The Carlsbad MX reunion happens on Sunday, May 31st. That's from 12 to 5. That happens at Booze Brothers. Okay. There's brews, there's bikes, there's a great bike show. And as always, you get some really great legendary guys who show up there as well. And don't forget, once June rolls around, the SoCal MX Classic will happen at Verona Oaks. Now, I mentioned to you at the beginning of the show that 2 books were released. And one of them is from Greg Adamitis. And Greg wrote to me, and I had Greg on the show. We did an interview with him, and his book is called Twilight of the Gods. And now Greg Adamitis is a published author, and he wrote this to me, and I wanted to share it with you. Joe, you're a good man. Thank you. If it helps and you'd like to read it live, below is a high-level overview that should click with your audience. The book is rooted in and dedicated to the legacy of vintage motorcycles, as well as do-it-yourself mentality one must possess or quickly develop if they're going to ride old bikes. It's also about where the sport is headed if current trends, be they higher prices, lower sales, and decreased participation, stay equal or get worse. Finally, it suggests that local electric-only motocross parks and errand-running EV scooters aren't so far removed from the 70s bike boom basics that as basic as that may seem. And that might be exactly what the next generation of potential riders needs. It's not about the progression of vintage motorcycling over the last 50 years. Dave Russell's phenomenal new book about the history of Mako expertly accomplishes that. It's a middle-of-the-road view of someone who sees the value of both temperamental race machines and battery-powered bikes that silently start at the touch of a button. Paul Clipper of Dirt Bike and Trail Rider magazine fame made it possible by designing the inside of the book. There are interviews with and quotes from Tommy Croft, Barry Higgins, Armour's executive director, the owner of Red Bud, of Bud's Creek in Maryland, current and former industry journalist, a Can-Am division director up in Montreal, loads of other East Coast locals, and of course, Mr. Joe Abbate himself is on page 156. Well, how about that? Congratulations, Greg Adamitis. And what a timely thing this is that in your message to me, you mentioned this book. Mako, The American History of German Motorcycles, 1955 to 1983. It is by Wayne Russell, and this book is over almost 400 pages. It is fabulous, and I'll tell you what. The index in the back, and the index, I'm sure you're familiar with it, it is an alphabetical list of everything that is mentioned in the book, from makes of motorcycles to locations to people. The index in this book has almost 400 listings. There are colored pictures. There are things about the early days in Makos. There are things in here about Germany and history. There's an article on Selvaraj Narayana, who of course is with KTM these days, and all the years he's put in. The German mark and its effect on cars. The war. So much is in this book. I don't believe, from what I've seen, that there's any other book about Makos that is as comprehensive as this. And the back says that the author, David Wayne Russell, is a retired military officer. He's a pilot. He's a historical artist. He writes on the military and motorcycling and holds a PhD in American Studies from Penn State. He lives in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So this book isn't just written by an enthusiast of Makos, and there are many, but it's a guy who's got a PhD from Penn State, and he's certainly a purveyor of history and has an incredible way of writing. There it is, Mako. Get this book. Oh, you know what's in there too that was fascinating? There's over 9 pages that covers the bankruptcy. We've all heard about it. Mako's crash, the hub. And when I say Mako's crash, I don't mean the bike. I'm talking about the brand itself. But you'll want to read about the bankruptcy and how all that shook out in the end. Again, Mako, the American history of the German mark. I think I have it right here. There it is. Get a copy of it. I believe it's available on Amazon. And something that goes along with this really, really well, okay, is a video that I got in from Paul Griffin. Okay, you know Paul Griffin from Mako Mo. Good guy, makes some contributions to the show at times. He did send me a video from none other than a man who is mentioned many times in this book, Greg Smith. So Paul caught up with Greg Smith. I think it was at the Mecum auction, and they shared a little tidbit. Let's get a look at it.
Here at Mecum, we're here with Greg Smith, and he's going to talk to us about his company, Wheelsmith, and why they shaved the fins of a Mako cylinder. And Greg, tell us a little bit about that cylinder right there.
So we started doing this the year the radials came out, which was well before when the factory did it. And we did it for several reasons. One was it looked pretty nice. Secondly, we were building high pipes before they came on the bikes, and we wanted some additional room. And thirdly, we felt that maybe there was some more cooling getting back to the carburetor. A colder fuel charge produces more power.
And after you started doing it, then Mako started casting their cylinders this way.
Casting the cylinders that way. I tell you the truth, it's so long ago I forget when that happened.
76.
76, but we started doing them in the first year that radials came out.
So you were doing this back in 73?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. We got Greg Smith here at Mecum telling us about the shaved, one of the many things he did at Wheelsmith to the Mako bikes.
And there it is. Greg Smith. We will be back to wrap up the Vintage Motocross Q&A. And we will also, when we wrap up, Susie will be back with tonight's viewer appreciation prize winner. Okay, we'll be right back.
I'm Ron Lachine, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. Carries the #1 plate in the US. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike, and that stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg, so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else.
All right, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Let's get over to Susie. She's got tonight's viewer appreciation winner. Suze.
Yes, I have Eric Weiss.
Eric Weiss?
Eric Weiss is going to get this little mud scrubber.
Okay.
Mud scraper.
Yeah, little mud scraper, and it's got that brush on there. That is compliments of Motion Pro.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Now, you got to make sure you get me your address. Right?
Right.
All right. Mr. Weiss, you got it? Get me your address, and we will get you that mud scraper. Now, in closing, last week we had a little trivia question. It involved a gentleman by the name of Mark Firkin. It wound up being a trivia question. I didn't think it should be. And Mike McCook and I, who have been friends for 25 years, Mike McCook and I have traveled in a car together for days at a time. Okay. I am not going to let a trivia question make us butt heads for any reason. It wasn't a trivia question. It was something much more important, really. And I didn't have the sense or foresight to say that. Mark Bernard Firkin, and that is his full name, is a very, very talented rider, and his career is not trivial. And there are many people in the motorcycle industry, in motocross, whose names you would not know, who, if I put them up for a trivia question, you'd never be able to guess it. Doesn't mean they're not a very, very intricate and important part of the industry. Mark Firkin was. I didn't think it was a trivia question. It was. I got a little flustered. I apologize to Mike McCook, and like any good Roman soldier will do, I will fall on my sword. Let's do something that pays homage to Mark Firkin in a much bigger way, Mike. I know you're on the road right now, traveling for work. I look forward to talking to you and seeing you soon. That wraps it up for tonight's Vintage Motocross Q&A. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to everyone who contributed. And don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel, okay? I don't know where the dog is. It's a beautiful day. He's running out in the yard.
Jane.
No, he's out in the yard digging holes. Is he? Come here, Judo. Come on. Can you get up here? I got to lower the stool. Come on. Come on, Gino. Get up here. Gino, they're waiting. Come on. Come on. Oh, my goodness. That's it for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Say goodbye, Gino. We'll see you next time.